Welcome to the Deep Dive,
Emerald City Hockey's Seattle Kraken podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Deep Dive, Emerald City Hockey Seattle Kraken podcast. RJ, month of August really kind of flew by, didn't it? We're on our last way too early episode of the month.
I know, now it's going to be just too early, not way too early. What are we going to do?
I don't know, because we're going to have, a couple podcasts there before everything gets underway, preseason and everything for the Kraken. So we'll see. But excited about this one, looking at the Pacific Division, going through all the teams that the Kraken are going to be going up against the most, right? And seeing what kind of moves they made this offseason. Did they get better? Did they get worse? And where we think the Kraken kind of fit into all of that. And of course, we'll end the episode on our rankings for the Pacific Division, rankings that always go well, right? Right, RJ?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, we'll talk about how well they went last year. It's gonna be great. We're so good at predicting these things.
We really are. So we'll be doing all that today on the episode. But of course, first we gotta thank our wonderful sponsor, the Lofts of Rico Tessendorf, for sponsoring the podcast. Now, RJ, Julie and I got a Switch 2, came with Mario Kart World. Been playing Mario Kart World, and I think it's the
That's
best
why you've been
Mario
out of
Kart.
contact for the last
Exactly.
week or so. Okay.
Exactly. I think it's the best Mario Kart to date. Personally, I'm a big fan of it. The open world aspects, the way the tracks are designed, and especially the new format of the knockout races, where 24 racers start. Every segment of the map, 4 racers get kicked out. The bottom 4 racers get kicked out. What this means, though, and I promise this will tie into Rico in a second, everybody. What this means, though, is all races in this Mario Kart have 24 racers, RJ. So it's a lot of racers. And if you get stuck in what Julia's brother is referring to as the peloton, which is kind of like if you can't pull ahead and be like first or second, and you're not just behind everybody in close to last place, things absolutely group up in the peloton, just like a Tour de France, and it is brutal. This is easily the most brutal Mario Kart game in a long time, folks. And so what I'm wondering is if somewhere in that big, expansive open world map that Mario Kart World has, if we can find a little spot for an office for the law offices of Rico Tessendor, because I'm telling you, there's always been blue shells. There's always been things like that in Mario Kart. You're aware of it, RJ. We know the Kraken are aware of it too. I'm very curious at training camp to see if everybody's gotten the Switch 2 and if they're playing the new Mario Kart or if they're all still on 8. But I got to think that there's somewhere in this big, expansive new world for a little office for Rico Tessendor, because the pain and suffering, the undue pain and suffering, when you're stuck in that peloton and you go from like second or third to 17th in less than a second, there's nothing else like it.
Yeah, I think Rico would do some pretty good business with the law offices right there on the side of the Mario Kart track. Man, that is great. If I was Lane Lambert, my first order of business would be to get everybody on the team. I don't know if that's allowed. Get everyone on the team a Switch 2. They're pro athletes; they can afford it. Yeah. Tell everyone to go get a Switch 2, play the new Mario Kart, because it feels like the Kraken lost that last season. Like no one was playing that anymore. Maybe with the new game, everyone gets back involved, right? And hey, maybe you can tell some of the players. Maybe some of the players will feel like they need to call Rico. I can see Maddie or even Morgan Geeky. Maybe if he's playing virtually from Boston or something, we'll try call Rico.
I was going to say, it does feel like a lot of that left. All the video game talk left when Morgan Geeky left, didn't it?
It did. It really did. I miss him.
It is unfortunate, but yes, it is. Somebody gets the giant mushroom and then they just flatten you. Oh, I'm telling you, you wish that there was somebody you can call. And while we hope none of you ever need his services, the odds say that at some point someone out there will be involved in an accident, whether on the road, at work, or anywhere in between. And when you are, we hope you call Rico at 425-778-9800 or visit his website, ricotessendor.com, to schedule a free consultation. He's won millions of dollars for his clients and helped thousands of people in the greater Seattle area. And as a fellow member of the ECH community, we know he'll help you too. Blue shell injury claims pending, we'll say.
Working on that one.
About it first.
If you get flattened by a mushroom on the road,
yeah. If the lightning hits you, the big lightning strike hits you, we'll see. I mean, what else is a free consultation for, right? Got to find out if you got something there.
Yeah, exactly. Just being all tiny, walk into the office, you got to try the lightning.
Exactly. All right, looking ahead at the Pacific Division, RJ, because again, we'll be going through all the teams, talking about the moves they made, how good we think those teams are, and then of course ending it on our predictions. Let's I guess get this out of the way and talk about our predictions from last year because they were rough.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think they were terrible. I
They
wouldn't
weren't
put them in that
terrible.
range. The thing is, I feel like we were off by 1 or 2 spots for a lot
Yeah.
of teams. The only team we correctly slotted into the right spot was San Jose at last place, and we both had that, and that kind of felt like maybe the easiest one to call.
It was a gimme, I feel like.
It was a gimme. So we got that right. I know we were debating a little bit between San Jose or Anaheim for last in the division, but we both correctly picked San Jose. Beyond that, I think we were in the ballpark for a number of things, but couldn't get any of the exact spots right. So we both had Edmonton winning the division. I think, and again, I don't want to give us credit for this necessarily because we don't deserve it. They finished third in the division,
Mhm.
but I think we correctly identified them at least as the best team in the
Yeah.
division. They went to the cup finals. So we were going off of that. For second, I had Vegas. They ended up winning the division. So close.
Mhm.
You had Vancouver, Dylan. Explain yourself.
I still stand that last year's Vancouver team had all the potential in the world, and they squandered it with petty drama, and I will stand by that completely. I did not predict the petty drama. I am not a petty drama person, maybe beyond our relationship anyway, yours and mine.
I was going to say, yeah, there's plenty of that
Outside
there.
of ECH, I'm not a petty drama person, and, no, it's just I really had I known that Pedersen and JT Miller were just going to destroy and fragment that locker room, and that, Quinn Hughes was going to get hurt as much as he was. I obviously would not have predicted them to finish second in the division, but I stand by. That was a talented roster with a great system behind a very good coach, and they blew it.
They certainly did. But Dylan, I think
And
we
I
should
don't know
try
what
and
else I'm supposed to say about that in hindsight now either.
I I guess so. Okay, there's nothing you can do about it because it's in the past. It's already happened.
Yeah,
But in the future, you can be better, Dylan. So
yeah.
this year, I want you to predict which two core players on which team in the Pacific are going to have a feud with each other, cannot coexist, and it's going to tank the whole team season. So you got to get ahead of it this year.
It's a bummer because the Ducks already traded Zegras.
Oh, that's right.
That would have been that felt like a layup.
Okay, well, you can think about it a little bit before we get into our
Yeah.
predictions at the end of the show. In third, I did have Vancouver in third because I still thought they'd be at least decent. You had the Kings in third; they were second in the division. I had the Kings fourth,
Mhm.
so I missed on them a little bit. You had Vegas fourth; they ended up winning the division. I think you predicted a bit of a fall off for them. Dylan, again, explain yourself.
I don't remember that one. I remember being all in. I just think I like those other teams better is all. And, I think reasonably Vegas probably shouldn't care about the regular season as much as they seem to. And,
I
like,
think
that
that's
would
that's a
be
fair criticism. Yeah.
and I think that is something that kind of comes back to bite them come playoff time, and it is something where I think they should just focus on, like, being a wild card team and seeing how far that gets you, and especially, like, last year, this year, be a wild card team, try to jump into the other division. Try to
Yeah.
avoid the Oilers as late as you can.
Yeah, I say the Oilers are dangerous, although you have other dangers in the Central for sure. But yeah, not bad advice. I mean, you look at both Cup finalists this past year, Edmonton and Florida both finished third in their division. It
Mm,
shows how little, if you're a team of that caliber, how little the regular season
yeah,
matters.
yeah,
So we kind of agreed there was a top four last year.
mhm,
Then fifth, we had Seattle. We figured they would be the middest of the mid. They were a little worse than that. I mean, we've explained ourselves on that one plenty on this podcast. So
yeah.
we'll go on to the next one. We both had Calgary at six. We did not see their impressive season coming. I think they overachieved.
Yeah, Dustin Wolf. It goes to show how if you've got a good goalie and you have a good defensive system in front of a team, you know, crossing fingers for Seattle this year, that can carry you a long way in this league. If you just play a very structured game and you get the saves you need, it will carry you far and very nearly to a wild card berth.
Yeah, very close. Almost got him there. I think they had the most points by a team not to make the playoffs in NHL history. So that's tough for them. Then second to last, we had Anaheim. I feel like we got the spirit of this. We just didn't think the
Mhm.
Kraken would be as bad as they were, to be worse than the Ducks.
Yeah.
But got the right idea there. And then of course we had San Jose at the end to cap it off. So not terrible, but I think we can do better this year.
Yeah. No, and I think we will do better this year.
Can't do much worse. All right, let's
Exactly.
technically, as far as getting the correct spots.
Again, there is no more Pedersen, JT Miller on the same team. There's no more petty drama.
That's true. Yeah, you know
It's
what?
all
Blame
gone.
Vancouver. I blame Vancouver for
Yep.
all of our errors in predicting the standings last year. If we
Yep.
had just known that one
Definitely.
thing, we would have nailed it. But looking at the Pacific Division as a whole, before we get into the specific teams, how do you feel the Pacific Division is this year, just strength wise overall? Because the first question I had when looking at all these teams top to bottom and going over profiles and making the notes and everything for this podcast was, is the Pacific the weakest division in hockey?
I think if you're looking at it in its totality, maybe. I think the Metro probably gives them a run for their money there, and I do think I probably would say the Metro's worse, 'cause, like, I think there's basically every division in the league can say that they have, like, 2 legit Stanley Cup contending teams in it, and obviously the Pacific can in Edmonton and Vegas. It's then, like and every division's gonna have some bad teams, right? Some teams in the middle of a rebuild, whatever. Obviously, the Pacific has that. It's really like, are the other borderline playoff teams that good? And I think that's where the Pacific maybe kinda takes a hit compared to teams like the divisions like the Atlantic or the Central, where, you're talking about LA, Vancouver, Calgary, right? Like that kind of tier of teams where they're going to be competing for the third spot in the division and, wild cards in their conference. I think the Central having like a team like Minnesota is better than those teams. The Atlantic having, like Tampa in there is better than those teams, or the Leafs is better than those teams. I think they probably that tier probably clears the Metro, but, just with the Penguins truly falling off and just being
Mhm.
legit trash at this point, but it is close. I think in the Western Conference, the Pacific Division is definitely the weaker of the 2 divisions.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. My ultimate answer was no to that because I felt the Metro was weaker, but certainly outside the top two, because that's where the Pacific goes ahead. Is they have two legit cup contenders in Vegas and Edmonton. The Metro doesn't have that. Carolina is the closest thing they really have.
Yeah.
But on in terms of depth, I would still actually go Metro over the Pacific. So it is one of the weaker divisions in the NHL. But of course, that could set up favorably for the Kraken as we
Mhm.
kind of get into it and see. And then the last question I have for you, Dylan, because this came into play last year, how many playoff teams do you think there are going to be from the Pacific? Because there were only three last year. Both wild cards went to the Central because I think it just is that much better of a division. Do you see that happening this year?
I mean, it depends on how a couple things break for teams in the Pacific, right? I mean, like like Minnesota/Winnipeg, one of those 2 teams is picking up a wild card spot. Like, I think there's only at most 1 wild card spot available for teams in the Pacific, and looking at it, like, I don't and we'll talk about this in a little bit when we get there. I don't think Calgary can repeat what they did last year, and I don't think they added enough to make up for that. Vancouver, I don't like the coaching swap that they made, and I think that their team is just arguably worse. Although if they're healthier and cohesive and not fighting amongst each other, maybe they're there. Um, I don't know. It is tough. I'll say like Vancouver or Anaheim can maybe get there and be a wild card team. And
Okay.
if
I
things
just
fall right for the Kraken could be in that conversation too.
Well, that's what I was thinking is just in terms of I think it's important to look at it when we're ranking these, going over the teams, just really how many playoff spots are going to be available in the division. And personally, it wouldn't surprise me if it was only three and you kind of had
Yeah.
to get into that top three and where that line was going to be. So I just thought that was important to talk about as we talk about the division as a whole and kind of where things, are going to shake out. But let's go to the teams individually
Mhm.
now. And as we did last year, we're going to start in the reverse order of last year's standing. So we're going to go last to first from last year's finish. And of course, that means we are starting with San Jose, who finished last in the division with 52 points, 24 points shy of second to last Seattle. So with the Sharks, I said this last year and I was technically correct. I said they're certainly going to be better
Mhm.
than they were, and they were,
Yeah.
but by how much? And I think you probably agree with me on that. But how improved are they poised to be, given the changes they've made this offseason?
I still think they're a year away, right, from really turning a corner and being able to climb up the standings. I think that last year was really important because it did 2 things. One, it was a really good rookie year for Macklin Celebrini, who is going to be the corner, the focal point of your rebuild, right? He is your cornerstone. You need him to come out there and build confidence and have a solid rookie year and look like he can be the guy for your team, and he did that. And the other big thing that I think was important for this group was just to have, whether it was coming from the coach, the new coach in Ryan Warsofsky, or if it was coming from the player group, you needed the energy and environment around that team to change, right? You needed to just come out of it with some positive energy, some positive momentum. And I think that that's really where they were the most successful. As great as Macklin Celebrini was, I don't know that I've ever seen a team turn around and go from just true doom and gloom, misery, no hope, no optimism for the future into a team that looked like they had more fun than any other team in the NHL last year, right? Like I just don't think I've ever seen that in 1 year, and I think that management, Mike Greer, and the rest of the front office deserve a lot of credit for that. Of course, Warsofsky and the coaching staff deserve a lot of credit, and the players I think deserve a lot of credit there. But I think that that was really really important for them, and I think that that's going to be the thing that they can use and slowly start building some more success this year. I just don't think the roster is talented enough to do too much this year. As much as I think the young guys are going to take a step forward, Celebrini will take a step forward. I don't know how much because he was so productive last year, but I think his game will get more complete. I think guys like Will Smith are going to take a step forward. We'll see if like a Sam Dickinson joins their blue line through training camp in the preseason based on his play there. We'll see about Michael Misa and him coming in, but I think that you're still going to be working in a lot of young players into this group. And I think that they're going to still largely kind of take the track that they did last year, which was as we're working these young players in, we care more about them building confidence than teaching them structure, right? Like we'll teach them structure once they have their heads wrapped around being a professional athlete, 82 game NHL season. They've gone through those, hardships. They've learned how to play while hurt and bruised. They understand what it's going to take to win because everybody at this level is so elite. We'll deal with teaching them how to round out their game and play a more structured style in the future. Let's just do another year of fun vibes. Let the young guys hang out with Tyler Toffoli and keep him up with milk and cookie calls from room service and all of that good stuff. And let Michael Misa, Sam Dickinson, maybe some other young players work their way into this lineup and build up some confidence first.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they're gonna prioritize the development of everybody, and it's so impressive how like you said, how the Sharks were able to keep the vibe so positive and everybody having fun when they lost 62 out of 82 games.
Yeah.
Like what other team that loses that much is able to do that? So that's impressive. I think that there's going to be an expiration date on how long you can have fun while losing that much. But I think it'll be after this season for San Jose. And so I think they're going to improve. They might even improve by 10 or 15 points and we wouldn't even
Mhm.
really notice just
Yeah.
because that would leave them in the standings still clearly in last place in the division. But I think, they're going to be better. I don't know if they're going to be a ton better. Where I have questions for them, because the forward group is fun. They can
Yep.
score. They showed that last season. They're not particularly deep. You get to the bottom six and it's, iffy, but they still have a lot of questions on the blue line.
Mhm.
I think it's still a bottom three blue line in the league. It may be the worst blue line in the league still, despite additions of like Dmitry Orlov, John Klingberg. I mean, we'll see where that gets them. We'll see if Sam Dickinson can make an impact. But the blue line is still certainly a bottom three unit in the league. And then goaltending is still very much a question mark. I mean, they had
Mhm.
Mackenzie Blackwood for some of last season. Now it's going to be, Askarov. It's his turn to take the net, but he's never really been a starter in the NHL before. So we'll see how that goes. And then I think Nedeljkovic is their other goalie. And so, kind of a journeyman borderline
Yep.
NHLer. So that blue line combined with that goaltending to me says that they can't really be that good.
I totally agree, and I do think even with Orlov, that has to be the worst blue line, right? It is so bad, and I do think, and we've talked about this, like, it's going to be really tough to be a goalie for this team behind this blue line because you're just not gonna get a lot of support, and I'm really interested to see how Askarov is behind that, right? Like, is he a goalie that needs a little bit more structure in front of him? Can he play with a little bit more of a frantic pace and energy? Because it didn't seem like he could last year, right? Like when things really broke down in front of him in San Jose, it felt like he was getting pulled from those games, right? Rather than finding ways of kind of working through it. And so I think that that's going to be something that they're going to have to figure out over the course of the season is, you know, again, it's not ideal for any goalie. It's not ideal for any young goalie, right? Like your future franchise starter in net, you don't want him to have to be behind a blue line this bad. But he's gonna have to find a way to work through it and take a hold of the starting reins and become the guy that certainly he thinks he can be, and that a lot of people around the league think he can be this year.
Yeah, definitely. So I think he's going to get that chance. I think he's going to play a ton of
Mhm.
games, and that'll make a big impact on how the Sharks actually do this year. So that's San Jose, unless you have anything else about the Sharks.
Not really. I just think they're gonna be fun to watch, and I think they're gonna play teams a lot closer than they did last year, and I think that that's just gonna be something like they're still gonna lose plenty, don't get me wrong, but I think that they're gonna be able to, if you go into San Jose thinking it's just an easy W, they might be able to sneak up and get you.
Yeah, you're going to have to work a bit harder this year than in
Mhm.
previous years. And we know that's been an issue for the Kraken at times. So, you can't take those games for granted. Speaking of the Kraken, they are next. They were second to last in the division last year with 76 points. We won't talk about them as much as some of the other teams because we talk about them every week and all the time. And we predicted all 82 of their games last year. And I think we came up with, I forget how many points you ended up predicting for them. I came up with 85, which felt, the more I think about it, way too high.
Yeah, it's maybe a little optimistic there. I had like a just a couple point increase from last year. I think that with the Kraken, certainly like it's just because we don't know how Lane Lambert's system's gonna take yet, right? Like just like with Calgary last year, and I kind of talked about it earlier. If you have good goaltending, which the Kraken do have in Joey Daccord, right? If Joey Dacord's going to play 55 games for them, they're going to have elite goaltending. If you can play a structured game in front of that where you limit the really dangerous chances and you're able to manufacture some offense, right? Just because you have a good solid forecheck, you have a good cycle game, guys are going to the net front, you're able to get rebounds, you're able to screen other teams' goalies, right? You're able to do a lot of the things that the Kraken have just struggled offensively to do over the years. You can win hockey games in this league. You can put yourself in the playoff conversation come the late parts of the season, right? Like in March, April, Calgary was very much in that conversation. And I look at Calgary's forward group versus the Kraken's. I think the Kraken have a better forward group than they had, right? So if Lane Lambert's able to come in and establish a very structured and disciplined system within this team, and Joey stays healthy in net, there's no reason that the Kraken can't have a significant bump in points and end up an 85-point team. But I just, without seeing it yet and kind of knowing what offensive system he's going to install, what kind of forecheck, where he's slotting guys within that system, it's just hard to say how well it's gonna work right now.
Right. And I think their absolute ceiling is probably last year's Calgary Flames. And I
Yeah,
think their floor is probably, 6 or 7 points worse than they were last year. I think the reality is going to be somewhere in the middle.
yeah,
So that's the Kraken. We'll talk about them plenty
yes.
going forward, I'm sure. But next is the Anaheim Ducks, who finished 4 points ahead of the Kraken last year with 80 points, just under 500 NHL 500. Um, what are we thinking about the Ducks this year? Because they have a new coach. One of the things we talked about a lot last year, and why we were so pessimistic on the Ducks, we both had them second to last in the division, was the coaching.
Mhm.
We both, I think, believe Greg Cronin was the worst coach in the NHL at that
Yep.
time. He is no longer a coach in the NHL at this time, and probably will not be as a head coach again. In comes Quenville.
Mhm.
So interesting choice to replace Greg Cronin. How much do you think that moves the needle? And like, what do you think of their offseason changes as well for the roster?
Yeah, I think it's gonna move the needle in the sense that this is a team that is very much, like 2 years out from where the Sharks are now, right? Is in terms of their rebuild, where last year was the year where it felt like they needed to kind of turn the corner. And second half of the year, they kinda did, right? They did get better in the second half of the year. Young guys started producing a little bit more, but I think they know that this year is key, and I think certainly for the front office, this year is key. I think Pat Verbeek's probably working with, not a lot of leash. His seat is getting warm, I think up there in the front office. So I think this was a move where they went out and they got a veteran coach who, you know, is going to be able to get them better results than Greg Cronin was. I think you and we talked about it a lot when they hired Quinville on Red Glare, our Patreon podcast, that we don't have any faith in Joel Quinville come playoff time. Like the game has largely passed him by. We know that just from the tail end of his coaching stint in Florida and even Chicago kind of before that. The game I really do think has passed Joel Quinville by, but so much of what the Ducks have needed is just somebody who is going to kind of hold them to task, be a little bit, force them to be disciplined. And I do think that he can do that. He is going to command that room in a way that Greg Cronin just couldn't. And that will make the Ducks better. They're going to be able to then take a step forward because this is a talented roster. It's still a flawed roster in plenty of areas, don't get me wrong, but they have a lot of talent on this team. Troy Terry's a legit goal scorer if the offense can, just be semi-normal around him. Mason McTavish is a good young player. Well, we can maybe talk about his contract situation though. Leo Carlson shows a lot of promise and is going to be entering his third year in the NHL and should take a big step forward for them and could potentially be their 1C by the end of the year. Cutter Gauthier really turned it on at the tail end of last year. Ended up a 20 goal scorer super quietly. Nobody really talked about it. You get rid of Trevor Zegras, who I do think was kind of weighing down that locker room, and you're able to kind of turn over the defense with Cam Fowler not being there anymore. You're not going to have to rely on giving him X amount of minutes that you were always had to in the past just because of his seniority in that room. So I think that this is a team that is going to be better. I think it's very reasonable to expect them to have like 5 or 6 20 goal scorers and this team to put up offense. They do have a veteran-ish blue line with Radko Gudas and Jacob Trouba. I don't know how good it is, but I think Dostal will be able to hold down the fort in net somewhat. He'll be able to be an above average goalie. I don't think he'll be as good as he was the first half of last year. I think this is a team that is going to take a step forward just because Quinville is the guy.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the most important change. I think a lot of people around the league don't understand just how bad Greg Cronin was as a coach and how many of the Ducks' problems the last couple of years, I think, were self-inflicted.
Mhm.
And watching them, especially those games against the Kraken, you could see it. There was a lack of structure. Nobody knew where they were supposed to be. Lack of discipline. They take dumb penalties, and there didn't seem to be any repercussions for that. That's all going to go away, and not because Quenville is a great coach, just because he's a coach who's going to set standards. So I think that's going to help a lot for them. Like you said, they do have good young talent in the forward group. They can kind of do the scoring by committee approach. I think
Mhm.
adding like a Granlund is going to help with that as well.
Yep.
I have questions
Kreider.
about the blue line. Yeah, with Gudis and Truba probably going to play way too much.
Yep.
I'm not really a believer at all in Zellweger either. So you're going to be leaning on some of your younger guys to really take a step, and for Jackson Lacombe to continue to play amazing like he did last year. But he still just has that one good season under his belt. And then goaltending, I like Dostal, but you never know with
Mhm.
goaltending, especially given a player with lack of a ton of experience and that um, track record of just a bunch of seasons under his belt. I'm iffy about that extension, is what I'm trying to
Yes.
say.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to be improved. Not enough to be a playoff team, but they're
No.
going to be better, and it's going to be respectable at least.
Yeah, I think they are going to put themselves in the range of the East Coast having to pay attention to them for the first time in a while.
Yeah, I think that's well. I don't go too far actually, because you got to do a lot for the East Coast to pay attention to the
Yeah,
California
true,
hockey team. So
true.
I wouldn't go that far.
Is the one real concern for them right now just getting Mason McTavish signed before training camp starts?
I mean, I think that's got to be their biggest concern. But again, I don't think it's going to be uh, that big a deal. I mean, look, we just saw Marco Rossi sign for Minnesota. I think you probably just get a short term bridge deal done, and then it's the same situation, right? You want to get moved, you want to earn a bigger spot here or somewhere else, go earn it, and that'll kind of force things to happen. Like, I don't think he's getting moved at all before the season starts.
No, it's just that's where everything went wrong with Zegras, right? Was the holdout and the contract negotiation there. They ultimately signed him to a bridge deal. Everybody thought, okay, it'll kind of work itself out, and it just really didn't. And the relationship was never the same. Again, I think Greg Cronin did not help the situation there as
Yeah.
coach. But I do think that it is interesting, right? Because they are saying essentially like Leo Carlson's our guy. It's not you. To Mason McTavish, who has shown a lot. And again, if you just put him in a structured offense, I do think he could be like a 70-point guy.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I think he's going to be their number 2 center. He's
Mhm.
going to be the 2C. And now that they've added some guy, like they've added Granlund, I think Gauthier's a year older. You're going to have players you can put around him.
Yeah.
They added Chris Kreider, who I know he's getting older, but he's still a good player and a good vet to play with. I think given their offseason additions, he's going to have enough guys that he can play with and enough opportunity that if he plays well, it should work out okay. And hopefully he won't, be too disappointed with what the situation is.
Yeah. I hope we get to see Beckett Seneca as well. I think
Well,
that would
that
be a
would be
lot of
fun
fun.
too.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
All
Um,
right.
so, so that's the Ducks. Moving on, next is the Vancouver Canucks. Dylan, your pick for second in the Pacific Division. Are you going to
Yep.
go there again? I guess we'll have to
No.
wait till the end of the show. Okay, well, spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert, no. Um,
So with Vancouver, I mean, they're an interesting situation. One of the harder ones to predict because, I mean, last year they finished so much worse than they should have given the talent and everything. I think last season, everything that could go wrong for the Canucks did go wrong. But as we take a step back, they were still a 90-point team,
mhm.
given that everything went wrong. So I want to predict that they'll have a rebound, that they're going to be better than that, because I don't see how it could go worse for them. But you look at the changes they made this offseason, and it starts with a new coach, one that I think is a pretty significant downgrade in
Yeah.
Adam Foote, versus Rick Tocchet. And look, just looking at the coach, I think he's going to be in over his head here. I mean, you look at the experience, and you're just a junior coach and not one of the better ones at that. And so that gives me pause. I think the goaltending is still suspect. I know Kevin Lankinen stepped up big for them last year, but he was a guy who didn't have a contract to start the year, right? He doesn't have that track record of success, and goaltending can be wild. And then Thatcher Demko looks potentially broken, but even though he has his nice new big contract, and so much of this team too depends on Quinn Hughes being healthy. Like if you could just answer that question of how many games Quinn Hughes plays, I could feel like I could give you a much better prediction on the Canucks this season, but we don't have that information.
Right. This is a team that, yes, they were a 90-point team last year, but boy, did they do so much of that by surviving games until overtime. Right? They had a lot of OT wins, and then of course the 14 OTLs, which is 14 points in the standings that really helps kind of prop you up there. I mean, without that, you're talking about a very different group, right? If they only have like 6 OTLs the way the Kraken do, we're talking about them extremely differently. Just that one move, and so I think that that's part of this, and that was with this offense was 23rd in the league last year, and that was with them getting 17% shooting from Brock Besser, 16.5% shooting from Jake DeBrusk, Suter coming in with 18%. Like this is a team that shot at an exceptionally high rate, and they were still not that good, right? Like they were above league average in shooting percentage, and they were still only 23rd in the league in goals for. And so I really don't know where the offense for this group is supposed to come from. You certainly have a lot of guys like similar to Anaheim. I can find 5, 6 guys on this team that could end up with 20 goals, but I don't know who's really supposed to drive offense in the same way that like Anaheim I can look at and I can say like Granlund with a Troy Terry on his wing is going to be productive. Mason McTavish with like Cutter Gauthier on his wing and Chris Kreider on the other side is going to be productive. Outside of Pedersen, I don't know who's supposed to be productive. I mean, Connor Garland will always find a way to be semi-productive, but I just really don't know where the secondary scoring is really supposed to come from for this team, other than you have a bunch of names and guys that are, above average talents that are going to pot 15 to 20 goals just because.
Right. Well, I think you glossed over a little bit there. You said aside from Pedersen, but I don't think you can ignore Pedersen and just him being himself. If he can get back to even where he was, a year or two ago, right? He was at
Mhm.
least a 35 goal scorer each of the last two seasons before this past one. That's an additional 20 goals right there over what he gave you last season. And not to mention the assists and the other offense he's generating for other people. And I think that's really where the forward group keys in is, can he be himself again? I don't know the answer to that question, but if he can, I think that's where a lot of the offense is going to come from, because that's also going to be more production from Brock Besser, more production from Jake DeBrusk, maybe more production from Evander Kane,
I was gonna
one
say,
of the
you
new
think
additions.
do you think that there's
Yeah.
that much, like, room for those guys to get more productive? Like, they seemed like they were as productive as they kinda could be last year. Like, Jake DeBrusk had 28 goals. Is there really that much more for him to do?
Yeah, well, I don't think there's a ton of meat on the bone for DeBrusk. I mean, Besser, I still think he's like just a 25 goal guy, but he did hit 40 the season prior, and a lot of that was because of Pedersen and what he was able to
Mhm.
set up. So I think there's still meat on the bone there. I mean, Evander Kane is, we know he can still score goals. Like he showed it,
Yeah,
with the Oilers, and we'll see what that does, and also what that does to the locker room. Like I have my concerns there,
yeah.
but I do think there is the potential for him to be a 20 goal guy again if Pedersen is himself.
Agreed. Like I said, I could find lots of 20-goal guys, and I do think Pedersen will get it together somewhat. Like, he could be an 80-point player again. Not like I do think he can be a point per game guy. Is he gonna be a 100-point player? I don't think so. And
No.
and again, I don't know who's supposed to help drive and create that production behind him. Like, there is no
Yeah,
2C
so you're
here.
talking secondary scoring. Yeah, and
Right.
there's
Y
not a whole
y
lot of that. I mean, yeah, Philip Hedel, I think, projects to be their 2C, and that's not good enough.
Right. So
Well, they're
and
still looking for a 2C also. I mean, they're, I wonder if
yeah.
we talked about it on our Red Glare podcast on Patreon, right? Wondering if they'd be in on like a
Mhm.
Marco Rossi or somebody like that. It feels like they're not done here.
Right, it does. And so we'll see, kind of where that comes in. Obviously Quinn Hughes is gonna be driving this bus whenever he can, and going with Foot as coach is really for him. It really they're handing the keys over to Quinn Hughes, and they're making this his team. And so maybe he's the secondary scoring, right? He's the secondary driver of offense that this team kind of needs is just him being healthy for a full year. I also really like Roenick like as a secondary option on the blue line. Like he obviously was not able to. Yeah, I mean, he had his own injury issues last year, but he's also not able to properly fill in for Quinn Hughes because nobody can, right? Like he's a special talent. But I do think that as like the guy holding down the fort on a second pairing and being able to help move the puck from the back end there, like you're not losing a lot down the depth chart when Quinn Hughes's pairing has to come off the ice. The system can still stay there to have the back end be driving offense when Ronick's out there. And I think that that is extremely helpful for them. I just so much of why I think they were able to force as many overtime games as they were able to, the fact that they were able to get the shooting percentage they were able to last year. I just think so much of that came from Rick Tocchet. And without him, I just don't think any of that's there. And I just don't see how this team is supposed to be consistent. I think that's gonna be the big thing is that I don't think they're gonna be that competitive night in, night out. I think there's gonna be some nights where they are and some nights where they're really not. I think this is like a prime example of a team that's gonna just based on raw skill and talent, they're gonna beat up on bad teams, but without anybody really channeling that skill and talent, I don't see how they beat any good teams.
Yeah, I mean, I could also see them just being a little chaotic because of the raw skill and talent, being able to hang in with good teams, and also just having some careless nights maybe. But I look at the blue line. I like Ronick too, but you got out of Hughes, Ronick, and Pedersen, your three best defensemen. Last season, you got 68, 61, and 31 games with your team because Pedersen would trade,
Yeah.
respectively. You're gonna get more than that probably this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know how far that gets you. It all depends on the style of play and how they take to it. But I don't feel optimistic with Vancouver, but I have a lot of questions.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So from Vancouver, we go to probably the biggest negative surprise from last
Yes.
season, the biggest underachiever, to the biggest overachiever, and that's the Calgary Flames, who got 96 points last year, just shy of the final playoff spot. St. Louis edged it out with the tiebreaker. They also had 96 points. But good season for Calgary. We didn't really see that coming. Can they keep it up though? That's the big question in Calgary. I mean, they didn't change a whole lot roster wise. It's still largely the same core of players coming back. Can they run it back and maybe even do a little better and get to the playoffs? Because I don't think they can.
I don't think they can either. I do think they're going to largely be able to run it back and be about the same team that they were able to. Like again,
You think so, really?
they got really lucky last year. Well, so again, they're gonna I think they're gonna play the same. They're gonna be the same level of competitiveness. I don't know that that's going to translate to the same amount of points, if you know what I mean, because they were
Mhm.
unbelievably lucky when it came to how games finished for them, even more so than Vancouver. But again, you're talking about 14 OTLs. The overtime wins for Calgary was even greater, I believe. Like they were just a team that was able to go out there and, you know, play one goal games and just somehow always end up on the right side of it. I think some of that puck luck regresses this year, and I think that that's going to cause them to drop. But like, you know, I think that Dustin Wolf's performance was largely repeatable. Like his numbers were very good, but I don't think that they're like so good that he couldn't repeat a 9-10 save percentage. You know what I mean? Like his quality start percentage of 5.66, like he could do that again. So like I think you're gonna get roughly the same performance out of Dustin Wolf. The rest of the team's gonna play structured. Nazem Kadri led this team in scoring, but at a reasonable rate. Like I think he is a 65-ish point guy. Maybe he drops off a little bit because he'll be 35 this year, but like he scored 35 goals last year, only shooting 12.5%. Like that's just kind of who he is. Like him and Huberdeau will drive offense. Dustin Wolf will hold down the fort in the back end. I think the team will be the same level of competitive every night. I just think the puck luck's not going to be there, so they'll fall down the standings.
Yeah, I have questions about the level of competitive every night. And look, they certainly proved it last season that they could absolutely do it. Not questioning that at all from last season's team. But to me, Calgary is really poised to just fall off this season. That's how I see it. Their success last year was built on such a shaky foundation. Like it's goaltending and it's a team really buying in from a first year head coach. Those are the two big things that everything was built off of. And I look at it and I look at their result and look, they need Vesna finalist level goaltending, which is what they got. They need that level of goaltending and they need complete buy in from everybody on the roster every single night. They need that in order to be just outside of the playoff bubble. That's what last year proved. Now, my question is how long can you convince a group of players to buy in like that when they now know that that is their absolute ceiling and it's not good enough? And that's where I have questions. And maybe Ryan Huska is a really good coach and can get everyone to continue to buy in like that. And maybe they have some early success and maybe that sustains them through the middle of the season and those tough days and everything. And maybe like Joey Decord told us, right? When you think you're good, when you think you're better, it kind of builds on itself and you can keep playing that way and keep playing hard. But with this Flames team, I think if things start to go bad early, as soon as they do, it could all fall apart because talent wise, they're near the bottom of the division, I think. And unless they get that goaltending, which again, I don't know, goaltending's kind of random. I like Dustin Wolf. I think he's a good goalie, but you never know when a goalie's going to have a bad season. Even the best goalies in the league have a bad year every now and then. It can happen.
It
If,
can.
if that happens, like everything's going to fall apart. This is a house of cards.
Well, again, I'm not debating that this isn't arguably the least talented roster in the division.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
I absolutely think that they are. I'm just saying this goes to show how powerful systems and structure are in hockey, right? Like, and why teams like the Ducks, when they have a coach like Greg Cronin, are as bad as they are, and why having a good coach can make as big a difference, right? Why we think Joel Quenneville will make a huge difference for a team like the Ducks, because the Ducks are infinitely more talented than this roster, and this roster was consistently better than them last year just because they played with structure. And I think that that is something that, again, it's also a lesson for the Kraken. And the Kraken have been a team that have struggled with consistency and structure. But like again, Calgary's team last year wasn't really actually that good. Like they were lucky, and I'm just saying I don't think that luck will come back, but I think the same level of play will. And I look at the same level of play, and I'm talking about being below average on power play, below average on the PK, having one of the lowest shooting percentages in the league, right? Like, I totally think all this stuff will come back. Being a bottom 3 team in offense, they're gonna be a bottom 3 team again in offense. There's nobody on this roster outside of Huberdeau and Kadri that are capable of scoring at the NHL level. I absolutely think they're gonna regress in the standings. I just think that it's only been 1 year of them playing that hard. I think they have another year of playing that hard before you worry about that structure starting to slip and the guys not buying in and everything like that. And I just think that there's no reason that they can't again be a bottom 3 offense, get above average goaltending, play with structure, and still be competitive while still dropping 15 points in the standings because you're just not lucky anymore.
Okay. So I mean, as far as results, maybe we see it in a similar way, I guess. But I think they could get a whole lot worse than that if everything doesn't break their way.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at shooting percentage because they must have been like last in the league. They were second to last in the league in shooting percentage. Like again,
That could get better,
like
yeah.
that in theory, actually, that should get better. But I don't think it will get much better. Like I don't, like I said, I just think that they're a team that understands if they want to win hockey games, which every hockey player wants to, they're going to have to play a certain way. And I just don't think that they're the kind of group that they're going to just be like, oh, we lost out on the final weekend of the season last year. You know what? We just don't have it. I think if anything, that's going to motivate them to start the season really strong from a competitive standpoint. Again, I don't think they'll get lucky. I don't think they'll win a lot of
Yeah.
games, but I think that that is that was close enough that I think they could buy in again for another year.
Again, if things go their way early, I could see it, but if it
Yeah,
doesn't, look
but
out.
again, horrible team. like,
Yes, we can
by
agree
every
on that.
metric, it is a terrible team.
Yep. Uh, all right. From a terrible team to a very much not terrible team who only finished 5 points higher in the standings last year, the Edmonton Oilers, the back-to-back Cup finalists. I mean, Dylan, we know they're going to do their thing in the playoffs.
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised to see McDavid and Draisaitl get right back to another Cup final
Yeah.
because it just seems like they have figured that part out and they're pretty unstoppable in the playoffs at this point, except by the Florida Panthers. But in the regular season, that's a different story. I mean, they finished third in their division. I've got to think too that in the regular season, they're going to know the regular season doesn't matter. And for a team that has Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, the regular season does not matter. You will get enough points to make the playoffs pretty comfortably. You have those guys who are just going to do their thing night in, night out. And your only focus really should be on getting to the playoffs healthy and playing well. But what kind of a regular season team do you think this is going to be? Because they're still going to be pretty good.
Mhm. I I think they're just basically gonna be that, right? Like, they win all the games they're supposed to. They're gonna be competitive against the other good teams and take half of those. But are they gonna be challenging for the President's Trophy? No, because they don't care about that, and there's no reason for them to. It's way more important that you manage the workload of Draisaitl and McDavid and Bouchard, and they enter the postseason as healthy and as ready to go as possible after playing deep into the playoffs in back-to-back years now. And I think that that's all that they're going to care about. I don't think this team cares if they're a wild card team, right? Like as long as they just make the playoffs, and they're certainly good enough that if late in the season that looks potentially in doubt, they can turn it on and they'll get there. But I think that this is a team that, yes, all everything about their season is just dictated by the playoffs. I still think that until I see, Dallas able to beat them, I just don't think Dallas can beat them. I don't think Vegas is good enough to beat them. I think Colorado is the only team that can match their superstar firepower with superstar firepower. But like this team should walk to the Western Conference final.
Yeah, they absolutely should. And it'll be interesting predicting the Pacific Division standings order like we're going to do, given that, you said you don't think they'll be bothered by being a wild card team. I don't think they would either. Will they be a wild card team? I don't know. They're certainly capable of
Probably.
winning the division. They could do it. So it'll be interesting when it
Yeah.
comes to prediction time. But with the Oilers, there's not a ton to talk about because look, we know who they are. They
Right.
haven't changed a whole lot over last season. I mean, they'll have a full season of Jake Wallman. They brought in Ike Howard. We'll see if he's able to hold
Mhm.
down an NHL spot and what he can do, maybe playing with McDavid and Draisaitl. But there's not a whole lot interesting here. We just know who they are.
Right. It's put up or shut up time for Stuart Skinner, but again, that conversation is for the playoffs. He'll be good
Yep.
enough in the regular season, so it doesn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He'll do what he has to do. Next, we go to the team that was second in the division last year, and that is the LA Kings with 105 points. The team destined to meet Edmonton in the first round every single year and be eliminated by them. So aside from being eliminated in the first round by the Edmonton Oilers, where do we think the Kings will finish in the standings? Maybe that'll tell us where the Oilers will finish.
I think it will because like the Kings are a team that just feels like a better regular season team than the Oilers, just because like they are deeper than the Oilers to an extent, right? Like there's going to be more secondary offense on this Kings team than there's going to be on the Edmonton Oilers. I think the blue line is deeper, although it's also worse than it was last year because of some of the moves. We'll see what kind of goaltending they get out of Darcy Kemper too, right? Like is
Mhm.
he gonna go out and have a 921 save percentage and a 2.02 goals against average, playing nearly 70% quality starts? Probably not, right? Like I don't know that at 35, 36 years of age, Darcy Kemper is gonna be able to do that. I think that this is a team that is worse than the group that they had last year. I think that at the same time, though, they are a deep group. They do have a good regular season coach. They're gonna be a playoff team. It's very similar to Edmonton in the sense that like this story has played out the last several years, and I don't see any reason for it not to keep going in basically the same manner and fashion it has been, unless they really decide to shake something up and they finally make a Fiala trade, right? Like they make some sort of blockbuster move. I I don't see why this team wouldn't be one of the top 3 in the division and then just flame out in the playoffs.
Yeah, it feels like exactly where they're headed. They're roughly the same team. I guess the big reason that they wouldn't do that is they have Corey Perry on the roster, so that'd be the reason to go to the cup final and lose. But other than that, I mean, the Kings went in the offseason with a ton of cap space and the ability to make some big moves and just weren't really able to. It seems like, Mitch Marner wasn't going to happen. I bet they tried on that. They probably tried to take some big swings and they didn't land. And so you ended up having, well, you didn't have to waste all that cap space on bringing in Cody Ceci and Brian Dumoulin. You didn't have to sign those contracts, but they did. And I think, yeah, they just got slightly worse. The most iffy part of this is just the blue line where Ceci and Dumoulin are not good, but it's really that they're overpaid. The contracts are a
Right.
bigger problem than the actual players. Because if that's their third D pair, which it probably should be, that's not a bad third D pair. It's not
Oh,
an awful third D pair. It's just a massively overpaid one. But
right.
as far as on ice results, that doesn't really affect you aside from just what you otherwise can't do. Brant Clark will need to take a step forward, but I think he can. He's
Mhm.
good. We both like the player there. And the forward group is largely the same as it was last season. So I don't see why they should be all that different.
I don't either. And so again, it's yeah, I think, I saw it on something the other day. Oh, I wish I remember who wrote it, but it was, talking about the Kings and talking about how for so long, right, Kings fans have been complaining about Rob Blake and the moves he made and didn't make as general manager, and how in one day, right, under Ken Holland on the opening day of free agency, they found out that the grass is in fact not always greener on the other side.
Oh, I think
But
that was from the Dom Lucian article about
yes,
the
yes, it was.
front office confidence
Yes,
rankings. Yeah, it
thank you.
was a fan quote.
Right. This is one of those things where, like, yeah, there's so many things that I could say about the Kings, but it's all like management decision stuff that isn't really going to impact the on ice play this year and the overall results and, where this team is going to finish. Like, this is still a team led by, one of the greatest centers of this century in Andre Kopitar, right? Or certainly of the salary cap era. They've got phenomenal secondary pieces around him. Kempe, Fiala, I mean, Kuzmenko plays great there. Quentin Byfield has really come on strong. Some of the other young guys are coming on strong. Philip Deneau can just shut down anybody all regular season long. Like, this is still a good team, like, but it's a good regular season team. And I, that's kind of all we're previewing here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they'll be a 100-point team plus or minus 3 points. I
Yeah,
feel fairly confident in that range.
I think that's
Uh,
that's fair.
unless something crazy happens. And then going to the defending Pacific Division champion, the Vegas Golden Knights, who led the division with 110 points before losing earlier than they would have liked in the playoffs this past year. And Vegas has made some interesting changes to their team over the offseason,
Mhm.
most notably bringing in Mitch Marner. Uh, what is that going to do for this team? And do you see him running it back with another Pacific Division? I guess we'll get to at the end. I keep asking you how they're going to finish, but thank you for holding off on that. But here my question will be different. Does the positive impact of Mitch Marner have a greater positive difference than the negative impact of bringing in Jeremy Lozon?
Yes, I think it does. I do believe that, especially because, um, yeah, I think that that's fair to say. Um, yeah, look, this team is going to be a phenomenal regular season team, right? Whether they kind of learn the lesson of maybe at times taking their foot off the gas and prioritizing the health of their guys and the overall energy level and stamina and all of that. I don't know whether or not at some point Bruce Cassidy starts wearing on the group, as is kind of inevitable. I don't know, but I think much like with the Kings and with the Oilers, these are all questions that will be kind of figured out and answered come postseason time. They mean nothing for the regular season. Like, these teams are so good, and they're in a division that it features so much at best mediocre teams that it just does not matter for them. And I think that adding a player like Mitch Marner, who is going to play with Jack Eichel, and they're going to go off, and they could easily both have 90 100-point seasons together. I like, this team's going to be stellar in the regular season. Like, there's nothing about this group that says that they should run into any issues at all, even if they featured like an injury or two.
Yeah, they're deep enough to handle it, especially with Mitch Marner now. I mean, you take a 110-point team, you subtract a couple depth guys, and you add Mitch Marner, who, say what you will about him in the playoffs, and there's plenty to be said there. Regular season monster, and especially on this Vegas team playing with Jack Eichel, that is going to be lethal. I think they're pretty clearly the best regular season team in the division, just given that Edmonton has come off 2 straight cup finals, and that is going to impact you in the regular season. But yeah, I don't see anybody that can hang with this Vegas team.
Yeah, and the fact that the Oilers don't really have the depth, right? Like I like maybe even LA keep the LA forward group depth a little bit better than Vegas's, but Vegas's high end is better, and I think Vegas's system and structure is better. I think that the blue line. I'm kind of interested to see how the blue line shakes out from like a pairing standpoint with Petrangelo not going to be there. But like, Shea Theodore is fine being the guy back there. You still got Noah Hannafin. Like it's still not a bad blue line, right? Aiden Hill, questions about him as a playoff goalie, no questions about him as a regular season goalie. He's absolutely good enough in the regular season. He'll give you above average performance each and every night and be steady and consistent, and that's all you need.
Yeah, exactly. With that team in front of you, a lot of goalies are going to look pretty good. And yeah, you do lose Petrangelo. I guess it kind of buried one of the leads on that one. That's going to be big, but I think they already prepared for that by bringing in Noah Hannafin. They were
Mhm.
a year ahead on that. That blue line is still just fine from a regular season perspective. So I don't see him having really any issues.
Yeah, same.
All right. So those are the individual breakdowns of the teams in the Pacific. But now, Dylan, it is time to predict the standings, Pacific Division standings this year. And like last year, we'll go top to bottom this time. We'll go first on through to eighth. So Dylan, who do you have winning the Pacific Division this year?
The Vegas Golden Knights. Not gonna
Yeah.
overthink it. I think that Mitch Marner coming in, he's a huge flashy addition for them. I think they're going to want to feature him, and I think, unlike an Edmonton team that understands that their priorities lie elsewhere and they need to take their foot off the gas at times, Vegas is not that kind of team, right? Like, they are, we go for the throat every single time we're out there, regardless of who our opponent is. And I think that that leads to regular season success. And I think that having Mitch Marner there they're going to want him to go off. He's going to want to go off as well. Like, forgetting about the team's expectations for him. Talk about a dude who has everything to, like, kind of prove, so to speak, even though he doesn't have anything to prove, but who's going to feel that way. I think that Vegas is just going to be a monster in the regular season.
Yep, agreed. I kind of spoiled it already when we were talking about Vegas, but yeah, they're going to win the division. I think they're clearly the best regular season team. Who do you have at number two?
This one's really tough because, like, I do kind of want to put LA there just because I do think that they're a deeper team, and I think that they again, might care more than Edmonton, but I think even an Edmonton Oilers team that doesn't like care as much, if again, I don't factor in injuries when thinking about any of this stuff, predicting for the season. Got a full season McDavid, Draisaitl. I, they're just gonna win games. Like I don't know how many teams can really just beat them in the regular season. You know what I mean? Like I just think
Yeah.
Edmonton is that good.
And especially with the bottom 5 teams in the division being, not all that great this year. We talked about the Pacific as a whole, maybe not having the best depth. A lot of these teams at the bottom of the division. I mean, the Kraken certainly for one are not going to be able to handle healthy McDavid and Draisaitl for a lot of these regular season games. So yeah, I'm going Edmonton number 2. For me, it's a pretty clear top 2 teams of the division. It's not even close.
Yeah, same for sure.
All right. So who do you have at 3?
Now I have LA. I just think that as much as I think they're gonna be worse, and I do think like it's not our fault, RJ, that we're gonna have the same list probably.
Yeah, that's
But,
true. It feels
but
like it shakes out pretty clearly.
what other team is supposed to be a top 3 team in this division besides LA, right? Like obviously Vegas and
You got to
Edmonton are
really
Stanley
believe in
Cup
Vancouver.
contenders. I don't believe in Vancouver. I don't believe in the coach and the moves and stuff. It is LA. Like again, this LA roster is good. Like I still don't understand all of the hate for Rob Blake. Like he's still assembled one of the best forward groups in the National Hockey League. Uh, I think goaltending is going to be worse and that's going to affect them. And I think that there's going to just be some overall like we're waiting for the playoffs, but this team is just that much better than any other team in the division. I don't see how, barring again injuries or some sort of total collapse, they don't finish third.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I have them at third too. And so there's a clear top 2, a clear number 3.
I
And
do
then it
think
gets
of the teams like when you're talking about petty
Mhm.
drama and a team capable of like totally collapsing this year, all of Vancouver last year, it is LA.
You
Like
think
they are.
so?
I do
With
think
Doughty
so.
and Kopitar there? I think that's got to be one of the
I
most
okay.
solid rooms in the league.
I don't think it'll be like the petty drama necessarily aspect, but I think of like the system and them the coaching wearing out on them and everything. I could see it being that group.
Hmm. I don't see it happening in the regular season unless I guess for any team if it starts going disaster. Like look at last year's Rangers, right? If it just starts
That's
going
the
bad.
thing. Like I don't know that they're capable of stopping a bad snowball if it happens. Like Edmonton, Vegas, they can stop a bad snowball, right? They lose 5 games, things look bad, they'll find a way to turn it around. I don't know that this LA group can do that.
I think they're above average in the league in terms of teams that would be able to do it just because Kopitar and Doughty are in that room. But that's my take on it. So we have our top 3. We're completely agreed there. Let's try and find some disagreement if we can with the bottom 5 teams. And I do think there are a number of ways you can arrange these
Yes.
teams. I think it's not as straightforward. Should I start with number 4 or do you want to go
Yeah,
with
go
number
for it.
4? Okay. I do have Vancouver at number 4. The more I think about it, and I figured you probably don't, the more I think about it, again, everything that went wrong for them last season that could have gone wrong did go wrong. Eh, They're still a 90-point team. And I know you talked about all the luck elements of that. But looking at these other teams in the division, I just don't know who I'm putting ahead of them. I want to rank Vancouver lower, but they're none of these 4 teams, Anaheim, Calgary, Seattle Sharks, whatever. I can't put any of them ahead of Vancouver still. And so I think the top 3 spots are there, Vegas, Edmonton, LA. That's where the playoff teams end. I
Mhm.
think 2 wild card spots to the Central yet again this year. Vancouver's probably a ways back of LA, but I think they're fourth.
I also have Vancouver at 4. If they get lucky, I think they can be a playoff team, but otherwise I'm kind of with you. Like it's,
They
are
have
they
more upward mobility than downward, I think.
agreed? And I think that that's something, but I think I don't think they're going to play above what they are, but I think they will play to what they are, and what they are is the 4th best team in this division.
Yep. All right. Can we find some disagreement here at number 5? Who do you have next after Vancouver? It's probably going to be the same as me.
um, I have Anaheim. I just think that they're more talented than Calgary. I think they're going to be, are they going to play with as much structure and discipline as Calgary? No, but they're going to have a heck of a lot more structure and discipline than they had last year. And with the talent that they have, the young pieces that they have, the center depth that they have, I think Anaheim's poised to take that big step forward. And I think that they'll be like a 90-point team and be 5th in the division.
All right, so I can't blame us for having the same pick here just because I think we both agree that Anaheim is going to take a step forward because we both watched enough Ducks Kraken games last year
Yeah.
and saw how bad the coaching was under Greg
And those
Cronin. And
games were still close. Like,
yeah, they were. So we saw the talent there. We saw what they could
Mhm.
be, and we saw exactly what was holding them back from being the team they could be, and that has been changed. So, I don't, I guess, blame us for picking them there. I bet we're going to disagree on something here. I bet we'll disagree on the next one.
Well, who do you have for the next one?
I have the Kraken. I
Okay.
have the Kraken at sixth in the division. I don't think they're going to finish second to last again. And the reason I have them there is mostly because I think the Kraken will do roughly kind of what they should, and I think they're going to get lucky. Again, I maintain they were lucky to finish with as many points as they did last season,
Mhm.
but I think they're going to get lucky again this year, whether it's in terms of shooting percentage or having the good goaltending or whatever. And it's going to be enough for like 80 something points. And for me, that's enough to put them ahead of Calgary, who I'm predicting a collapse for. And I think that's going to be our probably main point of contention and disagreement here. Do you have Calgary here? Or are you going with the Kraken?
So I didn't. I could have Calgary here if we just want something, because otherwise this is shaky. We're gonna have the exact same prediction.
Yes.
Is the bottom line, because I don't think we're gonna have like San Jose being better than Calgary. So at the bottom. So I think it's one of those things where I'm with you in the sense that, like, look, again, Calgary and Seattle are in essence, in trying what they're going to try to do this year, they're the same team. They're a team that wants to play
Yes.
structured, needs to manufacture offense, and needs goaltending to be rock solid for them. And they have young goaltenders that can be rock solid for them. They're the same team. I just think the Kraken have a better roster. Like, there's more talent on the Kraken roster than there is on Calgary. So, all things being equal, Seattle should finish ahead of Calgary, right? Like
Right,
if they're
but well,
doing
here,
the
playing
same
devil's
thing,
advocate,
we
I'm
have
trying to
better
talk you
teams.
into this here, though. I'm sorry to cut you off here, but I'm trying to talk you into this. You say all things being equal. Should we assume that all things are equal? You said yourself when we talked about Calgary that the systems are so important, that the effort, that the buy-in is so important. As far as you're concerned, that's locked in for Calgary. You've seen them do
Yep,
it, and
I agree.
you said you believe they're going to
Mhm.
do it again. Is that not the biggest question mark for the Kraken, right? We've seen them not do it for 2 years in a row. You think talent of the roster beats out known effort versus, I don't know, maybe they'll give effort, maybe they won't.
I do think Seattle's effort is going to be less consistent than Calgary's, but, like, it's so much better, RJ. The roster is
Yeah. Well,
so much
I'm on the
better.
side that talent is probably going to win out. I know that effort can, win
Like,
out over
because
talent, but I
all that
tend to
needs
lean
to
more on the
happen.
talent side.
Right, right. All that's needed to happen for Seattle these last couple years to be like an 85-point team. Because, like, again, I don't think they were really playoff teams either of the last 2 years,
Mhm.
regardless of the consistency issues, was just somebody to make them not as inconsistent as they were, right? Like, not for them to potentially be like one of, if not the most inconsistent low effort teams in the National Hockey League. I think Lane Lambert and also, certain factors like having Capo Caco around for a full season, having Shane Wright in theory hopefully stepping up and being a little bit more of a leader. Like, again, I have serious concerns about the Kraken player leadership group, because why wouldn't I after these last 2
Yeah, yeah.
seasons, right? Like they've done nothing to prove to me that they should be trusted as the leadership group. But I just think that, yes, they have to be is like 75% as consistent as Calgary, and they'll be a better team just because their team is that much better from a talent standpoint.
Yeah. I agree with you on all that. I'm just surprised you agree with you. So,
It'll be close. It's closer than it should be based on their rosters, I think.
all right. Yeah, and I do think with Seattle and Calgary, like one of those teams is going to bring the buy-in, bring the effort, and get
Yeah.
lucky, and will be better than we think, and maybe even like say better than Anaheim.
Mhm.
I think they have that upward mobility, and one of those teams, it's all going to go wrong for, and
Yeah.
they're going to be, I don't want to say last, probably second to last of the division,
Yeah.
because as we round this thing out, I think we've both picked San Jose to finish last in the Pacific Division, and I think we both agree they're going to be improved, but looking at it, they could be 25 points better than they were last year and still reasonably finish last in the division. That's wild.
Right. Yeah, the ground that they have to cover is so vast, right? Like, and again, they're gonna be better, but, like, certain things have to happen for this team to get better, right? Like, how much better can Macklin Celebrini really be? He had 63 points in 70 games last year, 25 goals. I think he can be better, but, like, is he gonna be a 95, 100-point player this year? Probably not in year 2, right?
I
Like
mean, if
like
he takes a jump of any significant size, then he'll be maybe a top 5 player in the league based on what he did last year. If he takes that level of a jump that you would normally expect from year 1 to year 2, you'd wanna see, he just
yeah.
doesn't have that far to go.
Right, and so it's like, I don't think that he's gonna jump into that tier, right? Certainly not from, like, a complete game standpoint. Top 5 is aggressive there, RJ.
I don't think he will. I'm just saying in
Yeah,
order for him to have the normal jump that you would see from a
right.
player because he was so good year 1.
Yeah,
That's all I'm saying.
yeah, so but I think, like, being, a point per game guy is, like, the expectation, that's the floor, right? Put up, like, 80 points, that seems like the floor, um, but, like, the rest of this roster, you know, I I don't know that William Eklund has much more growth there. Like 60-point guy feels like kind of
I
he
think he
hit
is
his
what he is.
ceiling, right? Tyler Toffoli had 30 goals. That's his ceiling. Will Smith will have some growth. You don't have Granlund this year. I don't know that like Fabian Zetterlund has a lot of growth. Alexander Wenberg is who he is. And then that blue line. That blue line is just truly awful. I don't that blue line single-handedly is going to keep your goaltenders from being able to get into any sort of good rhythm at all over the entire course of a season. You're not going to have the goaltending, you're not going to have the defense. This team cannot be better than like at absolute most second to worst in this division, and that's really if only a team in front of them just totally collapses.
Yeah. On the blue line, I see a path to it being not the worst in the NHL, but I
Yeah,
see no path to it being good.
right.
None.
It's bottom 3.
Yeah,
Like,
I think that's the ceiling is like 3rd worst at blue line in the
yeah.
NHL is the absolute ceiling for this group. So you're kind of limited at that point. So Sharks last in the division, but
And
look
again, you're
out
gonna be
next
giving
year.
right, and again, you care about young guys getting minutes, like, Michael Misa could very well have, like, 17.5 minutes a night on this team next year. He's not if he had as good a season as Macklin Celebrini, that doesn't make the difference for you, you know what I mean? Like, and that would be outstanding, right? And I think
Yeah.
very unexpected, and so and Sam Dickinson, if he makes your blue line, you might as well give him a bunch of minutes on the blue line, but he will be a first year defenseman at 19 years of age. They're generally not good, right? They're going to make a lot of mistakes that have things go wrong for them.
Yeah, exactly. And so like but they've committed to that. Like they're doing all the
Yeah,
right
it's what
things.
they should do for sure.
Yeah. So they're doing it right. They are on schedule, but the schedule does not have them contending at all this year.
Schedule's not this year. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, we are completely agreed on the Pacific Division standings for this year. I mean, of course we're agreed.
I
We're
can't
going to
wait.
predict it all right. It's going to be exactly this, right?
I was gonna say I can't wait now for an LA Kings first place finish, Vegas in second, Vancouver third, Edmonton fourth, makes the playoffs as a wild card team. Calgary repeats, and
Yeah, yeah.
the Ducks take a big step back and finish last. It all goes disastrous under Quinville,
Hmm.
who's fired halfway through the year, and it's
Yeah. And I don't know what Sharks are better than we all think, and but still second to last and just jump
yeah,
Seattle or something.
yeah,
Yep. Anyway, tell us all the ways in the comments that we're going to be wrong on this, and
right,
because I'm sure we're going to get plenty of people listening to this who, given that we are in total lockstep, they're going to disagree
yeah.
with
I
what
would
we
hope
think. So
so.
I'm
Anyway.
curious what everyone else says. Like, just list your 1 to 8 in the comments. I
Mhm.
want to see what everyone has to say.
Yeah, no, I think that'll be really interesting to kind of see like kind of what people are feeling as far as how the division should shake out this year and kind of where all these teams stand. Did we skip over something that you think is really crucial for one of these 8 teams, right? That you think is going to make a big difference, positive or negative, for them going into this season. But I certainly think that it's going to be a really interesting year for the Kraken, and I do think because of the way the division is set up, there is a lot of opportunity for the Kraken, right? Like if they are able to come together, buy into Lambert's system, go out there and have that consistent effort that they've been lacking these last 2 years, there's going to be points to pick up in this division. and they are there for somebody's taking, right? Let's, fingers crossed it's not Vancouver again, right? Because Vancouver keeps eating up all these easy points. Maybe it's time for the team a little bit further south to do it.
Yeah, and it's certainly possible. Like last week when we predicted the entire schedule, I think I got caught in the trap of like, oh, well, they're playing Calgary, that's winnable. Oh, they're playing San Jose, that's certainly winnable. They're playing Anaheim, that's winnable. They're playing Vancouver, that's winnable. There's going to be a lot of those games,
Yeah,
and
they
I
should be
predicted to
winnable.
win a lot of those.
Right.
So
Well, and they should be winnable. Like again, like they are a better team than those teams. It's just that you have to show up for those games, and that's been the question. And just to come back around to like everything we've talked about all off season long, that's the question for the Kraken is can you show up night in, night out? And I think based on this division, if you do, there's a lot of room for you to grow and improve this year.
yeah, definitely. And so I can't wait to see if they can do it. I mean,
Yeah.
we're still in way too early territory, but like that's the biggest thing we're going to be looking at is training camp starts and the preseason starts. How much are the guys buying into the system, and how much are they going to bring the effort?
Exactly. So we'll see how things go as we, transition and turn the calendar into the month of September next, soon-ish, I guess. And we'll see how things go there for the Seattle Kraken. But want to thank everybody for listening. As always, of course, want to thank our wonderful sponsor, the law offices of Rico Tessendorf, for sponsoring the podcast. And while we hope none of you ever need his services, the odds say that at some point someone out there will be involved in an accident, whether on the road, at work, or anywhere in between. And when you are, we hope you call Rico at 425-778-9800 or visit his website, ricotessendor.com, to schedule a free consultation. He's won millions of dollars for his clients and helped thousands of people in the greater Seattle area. And as a fellow member of the ECH community, we know he'll help you too. And again, also pending on if he'll take coins, Mario style coins, if he'll be able to win you big settlements in there as well. Find out soon. Thanks so much for listening, everybody, and we'll see you all next time.
Hey everyone, before we go, we just wanted to give a quick shout out to all of our awesome patrons over at patreon.com/Emerald City Hockey, especially our Terror of the Deep patrons.
Thank you so much for making all this possible. We really appreciate your support.